The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly Speaking podcast coming to you July 27th, 2023. It is the Thursday edition of the podcast this week. We're going to have on Robert Bonnette, of course, our frequent flyer of 2023 on the show. We'll talk about myriad things, of course, from politics to Paul Pierce saying some dumb shit again, with some logic, actually, though. And SummerSlam, all that good stuff we always talk about on the show. It comes with a lot of diversity and topics to talk about, of course. But this episode, of course, is called Just Around the Bend because as of this recording, we are a week away from the start of the NFL preseason. Now, you guys do know that typically I give three less of a fuck about preseason football. I don't care about fake football. I never care about it. To me, sign me up, caught me in after Labor Day. When Labor Day passes, this is the first week of football. What leads into the first week of football, then I'm in. So then, leave me the fuck alone. August, okay, I'm resting up. I'm trying to, catch up on TV shows and all the other things I'm doing. See me in September. But I've been kind of excited about football as of late, and I think I know why. The reason why I think is because of the fact that last couple episodes of the show on this podcast, we've been doing we did rankings on both the AFC and NFC quarterbacks. Each conference ranked them all. We had, of course, the entire Hull Up podcast crew of Mikey B, Big Jim, Con Nash, and Matt Mealizen on the show. Fun times away. Very, very, very comical, fun and comical shows alike we did there. They all picked on me, of course, but who gives a crap? And I think between that and then doing the off-season episodes on Hull Up podcast I do on Tuesdays, it's gotten the juices going again. Basketball's over at this point now. Like, other than the Damian Lillard story, other than James Harden story, Summer League is over, okay? There's nothing to talk about now. Free agency's over, pretty much. And baseball sucks right now. It sucks. I'm a Mets fan. They stink this year, okay? And you know my rule now. If you stink this year, see you, bye. I'll see you in the winter. I'll see you next year in spring. All right? The team's fucking 16 games behind first place in the NL East. And I think like 8 back in the wild card. They're not coming back. Stop. I hope I eat those words, but it ain't happening. So, but that, and then football on the corner. There's interesting storylines up the wazoo, which I've showed you guys in a second. I have 5 storylines I want to share with you, things I'm interested in into the year. Just 5, but it's a lot more than that, I'm sure. I'm pretty excited about football. I'm pretty excited about the season this year. So because of that, I want to share to you the 5 things I'm actually looking forward to entering the year. First thing I'm looking forward to is obviously the big story, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. How good do they do? Obviously, Rodgers traded to the Jets. The AFC is stacked to the gills. Rodgers is still really good. I mean, I know he had a down year, quote unquote, last year, but he's still top 5-ish quarterback in the league, top 10 quarterback in the league still, in my opinion. Okay. The Jets roster is 7-10 last year, despite having the worst, and I say the worst, quarterback situation in all of football. With the triumphant of Zach Wilson and Mike White and Joe Waka Flacco. Joe Flacco's still in the league. Can't believe that. Unbelievable. So, you have that, but they have a good roster around them. They have a talented roster, young and talented roster, a really good defense, borderline elite, I'd say, and good playmakers. So, logically, adding Rodgers to the mix should be a slam dunk. Okay? My question is going to be, what is the ceiling? I mean, what is deemed a success? If Rodgers goes to the Jets, and which he is now, what do we deem a success for the Jets going forward? And to me, it's probably at least winning a playoff game. Being that division, that conference, obviously it's tough. KC, Buffalo, Cincinnati. There's the 3 off the top you have there. Miami, if they're healthy, if Tua's healthy. So the Rodgers-Jets thing is the first storyline I'm looking forward to watching. That's the obvious one. The second one, we just teased it, Tua and the Dolphins. Can he stay healthy? That's what the Dolphins can run. Because I will say right now, on record, that the Miami Dolphins, when healthy, and this is a big, this is always the big quote of when healthy, quote unquote, to me have the best roster in that division. But again, it's about Tua Tagovailoa. This is the year, guys. This is the year. Either he gets through the year virtually healthy to get another contract, to get a new contract with the team, or he's done in the league. It's that simple. And this team is loaded with playmakers. By the way, the most underrated move they made this year wasn't even a player. Was actually signing Vic Fangio as defensive coordinator. So the defense on paper should be legit this year. But it all falls on the quarterback, man, on Tua. Can he stay healthy? We'll see. Number 3, the NFC North. I teased a couple months ago that the NFC North is sneakily one of the most interesting divisions in the league. It's not because it's going to be good or bad or maybe. It's more sort of storylines. I think for me, more than anything else, it's the unknown. Because right now, the Lions are probably the favorite. Well, it's not even probably, because look based on the over-under win projections from Vegas, which we're obviously going to get into that in the weeks to come when we do our NFL season preview with Zach and Chris. You know, Detroit's over-under is 9. Minnesota's 8.5. The Chicago's 7.5, and I think the Green Bay is 7.5 as well too. But no one knows how good the team's going to be. Like, we saw how Detroit ended the year last year, and they were really good. They missed the playoffs by a tiebreaker. But a part of me feels like, this is just on gut, of course, that Detroit feels a little overvalued. And look, it could be because of the fact that it's Detroit, because the Lions are who the Lions are. And in my 34 years of watching football, almost always when we give the Lions love, they fall apart. So what makes this season different? Well, number one, the division's easier now. There's no more Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay in the way anymore. Minnesota last year, while they're a 13-4 and a 2 seed in the NFC last year, they also were in minus 5-point differential in the league. So you have that. Okay. Minnesota, you know, they have Kirk Cousins. He's a good quarterback. He gets to the playoffs. He'll get to 10-plus wins a year. But there's a ceiling on that right now, still, with Kirk Cousins. He is who he is. All right? Minnesota's roster, they lost some pieces too, especially. So we expect a coming down to earth a little bit, a regression to the mean, if you will. How much do we regress this year? That's the question. The Packers. No Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love's the quarterback now. We don't know much of Jordan Love. The 2 or 3 games I think we've seen of him wasn't that good, honestly. Well, average at best. At least the last one he played against Philadelphia last year was average at best. But again, there's space to make a splash. And then you got the Bears and Justin Fields. To me, one of the most exciting players in the league. Also, a Bears team that also added pieces. You know, they had the most cap room in the league entering the offseason. They had draft picks to wazoo. They traded the number 1 pick they had for more assets. You know, they make a splash as well, too. I see the Bears improving this year, but how much is the question? That's why the North is interesting, because there's so much unknowns on there. So, that's that. Number 4, the Russell Wilson Redemption Tour. Or we hope we get the Redemption Tour. Because last year was bad. On optics, on everything. And I am the biggest Russell Wilson stan in the world. I'll defend this guy to the end of the earth. But some of the stories you heard last year that came out, whether true or untrue, not a good look, man. Not a good look. But you got Sean Payton there, one of the greatest offensive minds in history of football. Sean Payton, no nonsense. Sean Payton is already no nonsense, and is acting no nonsense. All that Hollywood shit that Russell Wilson was allegedly doing last year, that's over. That is over. So, Russ Wilson, trying to get the band running again, trying to get refocused, and I think he will. And I think the Broncos are going to bounce back this year. Denver's going to be the sneaky team in the AFC that might steal a wild card. Just my opinion. And number 5, the Niners, or the San Francisco 49ers quarterback situation right now. Now, we got word yesterday, or 2 days ago, whatever how long it was, Brock Purdy is cleared to do all football-related activities, no restrictions. So, I haven't heard anything yet, though, but it bears to assume that he will be the starting quarterback week 1. I assume. We'll see how it plays out. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe that's what it may not be. Maybe it's still Trey Lance again. Maybe it's going to be Sam Darnold. No matter who's going to be, the Niners always seem to find a way to get themselves in position to go to the Super Bowl. Last 2 years, they went to the MCL game and were, 1 game away from making the Super Bowl. Who knows? And now with Brock Purdy, it assumes Brock Purdy is the starting quarterback. Now we got tape on him now. I mean, he's not special, but we'll see. He did play well in the year last year when Jimmy G went down. So that Niners situation is very interesting, and I'm really curious how it plays out because the NFC is really it feels like a 2-team race in San Francisco and Philadelphia. Somebody say Dallas. Okay, Dallas is probably in the mix. Next tier down. But the NFC is wide open. So we'll see how it goes with the Niners there. So those are my 5 things I'm most interested in the year. I'll probably share a couple more of those in the weeks to come because there's a lot more things I'm really looking forward to talking about in the league as we enter training camp and preseason next week. One more basketball note before we get out of here, before we bring in Rob here to talk. Jaylen Brown, Boston Celtics guard, officially signed his Supermax deal with the Boston Celtics. He is staying on the terms of a 5-year, $304 million contract. Lots of opinions, mostly negative. Everybody's saying the whole thing I'm hearing is the same thing. Overpaid, too much money. Boston's crazy. Someone said that they're gonna regret it. They'll come to regret this in a year or two. Maybe. Who knows? What we do know is that they didn't have a choice. Because if they're going to either you max out Jaylen Brown to the gills or you trade him because I don't think he wanted to be there. And the only leverage you had of keeping Jaylen Brown, as I've been saying for months now, was to give him Supermax. And he took it. Does he deserve it? Why not? Who cares? It's the market. Does Jaylen Brown have another? Does he have another jump ahead of him? Does he have another tier to go to? Because he is a top 20 player in the league, in my opinion. Some will argue top 15. But you are in reality paying for past performance too, also. Because as good as he is, as young as he is, I don't know if I see another jump in his game. He is an elite offensive player, a borderline elite defensive player at this point now in his career. But do you see another jump? And look, you sit there one about saying about being overpaid, this and that, but this is what I know about Jaylen Brown as a core guy of that team for the last 6-7 years now. He's gone to 1 NBA Finals and played in 5 East Finals in the 7 years he's been there. That ain't something to sneeze at, bro. That's something you should be proud of. All right, now got no hope over the hump yet, obviously, and he bears some responsibility for that not happening either. But to sit there and say that this guy is not good or this and that, deserve the money, I don't know. And you think this is a lot of money now? Just wait till that new TV deal becomes reality in the next year or two. And watch that Jason Tatum contract come through the pike in the next year or two. Because you know it's coming. Okay, and he'll be getting probably what, 330, 340 for 5 years? Just watch. Think this is a lot of money? This is going to be the norm going forward once the TV deal is signed. This will be the norm going forward. So, Jaylen Brown got your money. I'm proud of him. Great kid, too, also. I don't know if you saw his press conference yesterday after signing the deal. Basically saying, someone had asked him in the crowd, wish I had a sound clip for that. So a reporter asked him about what are you going to do with that money? And he basically said that he's going to reinvest into Black Wall Street, into minorities, and really teach people how to invest and whatnot. Great kid. I mean, too bad as a Celtic. Too bad. Because I hate the Celtics, but at the same time, he's a great kid. And I'm rooting for the guy personally, not professionally, because I'm not a Boston fan. But, congrats to him on the big contract. With that being said, Let's bring in Rob Bonnette as we discuss a myriad of topics on here, and then we'll come back with your questions of the week responses concerning the NFL storylines. Because I had you guys, people on social media, give me your weigh in on your interesting storyline or storylines personally you have for the entering the season this year in the NFL, and we'll read those off at the back end of the show. All right, here's Rob. All right, here, joined, of course, once again by frequent flyer now on the podcast, my man, podcast host. He's that's 1/3 of the Modern Wrestling podcast, but also the host of the Rob the Genius podcast. Rob Bonnette, as always, on the show. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man, good to be back.
You should be a little happier. You're Washington Commanders. Finally, the ding dong,
yes.
the king is dead. The witch is dead. What we call it?
Yes, finally.
Daniel Snyder's gone.
Yes.
How you feel?
Oh my goodness. Oh, great. Just outstanding. And the new owners are already doing a bang up job. I mean, because look, Magic Johnson's a minority partner.
There we go.
And Magic is just master promoter, master salesman, and so he's already he already took a picture with his whole family on a yacht with Commanders, gear on. So he's already selling, and just, I mean, man, it really is like I said, like the witch is dead. And look, nobody some people have tried to, say, well, he got $6 million out of it. Like, we don't care. Look, I don't care if he sold the team for $100 million. He's out of here.
Yep.
We wanted that guy, Dan Snyder. We wanted him out of here. Okay. Didn't care how much money it took. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I said, he could have got $100 million, but we'd been fine with it. Okay. Just wanted him out of here. It was just a horrendous time.
I mean, obviously you're close to the situation. I mean, it's your team, so you're going to feel some kind of way about it. But if I told you worst owner in history of sports, is he the worst owner in history of sports, or is it still maybe a top 5, top 3? What would you put him?
Top 5, because now there are some owners that are just kind of inept, and they're not, or some owners are just not lucky, right? Sometimes you just don't get the draft pick, or the year you do get the draft pick, that's the year where the draft pick doesn't pan out, right?
Right.
But Dan Snyder he was comically bad, and then the more news that came out about it, just the worse you saw he was, and then he's also just bad guy. I mean, because look, there were stories in the past couple of years that the front office was basically like it was like a sexual harassment haven.
Yeah,
just all over. I mean, there were stories about them, people in the front office just drinking, basically day drinking at the job. Like people just had coolers in their office with cans of beer or whatever. The guys in the front office, mind you.
Right.
Okay. There was a whole thing with the cheerleaders where they were basically like pimping out the cheerleaders, basically. Okay.
That story's pretty sick. That story from 2 years ago is pretty sick.
And so all of that stuff, that's a lot worse than, hiring the wrong coach or whatever, or paying the wrong player. This is Donald Sterling kind of stuff here.
Yeah, it goes beyond just the field, and he's bad enough. He's bad enough as an owner of an actual product. Now, on top of that, you compound that with the off-field stuff.
Yeah, and so he's definitely top 5 worst. His only redeeming quality was that he wasn't cheap.
That's true. He will spend money.
That is the only redeeming quality he had, is that he spent money. But we find out more and more he was so involved in the decision making that even spending the money didn't help. Right. There were so many situations where he was making the draft picks, over what the coaches wanted. And like the only coach that he had that he really kind of fell back and let do his thing was when Gibbs came back.
Yeah.
And because look, everybody here reveres Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs is, you know, yeah, like look, we all revere Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs is the icon here.
I would argue he's probably previous episode like a couple days ago. I would argue probably in that when you look at like top 10 coaches in the history of football, the most underrated coach.
Yeah, and that's because he wasn't a big self promoter,
Right.
and that was the thing. Like Parcells was always promoting himself, and Jimmy Johnson, and he wasn't that. But when you look at what he did, of course, he won 3 Super Bowls, 3 different quarterbacks. None of them are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
None of them are going to the Hall of Fame. And they were good quarterbacks, but he won Super Bowls with those guys during the same era as Joe Montana and Dan Marino and John Elway. Right? He won 3 Super Bowls during that era.
Yeah.
With 3 quarterbacks who are not going to the Hall of Fame. And then what kind of gets overlooked also, though, is that like one of the biggest decisions he made, he came from Don Coryell. He was a Don Coryell disciple.
Yeah.
And Don Coryell, for those of y'all younger people who don't know, Don Coryell was one of the first people to have something similar to like the kind of air raid kind of offenses.
Yeah.
He was one of the first coaches back in the 70s to do that kind of thing. So Gibbs was a Don Coryell disciple, and that's the kind of offense he wanted to run. He came to Washington, he started running that offense, and they racked up a lot of stats, but they were like 0-5 to start. And a lot of these offensive genius head coaches, they insist, no, I'm sticking with my offense, my system. It will work if I'm going to stick with it because it'll work. And a lot of offensive geniuses coaches get themselves fired because they won't change their offense if things aren't going right.
Right.
And so he was 0-5, and he just looked at it like, well, we're putting up a bunch of numbers, but we're not winning anything. And he looked at his team and said, look, we got the Hogs, we have John Riggins, so the passing thing ain't working. So we're going to do things. We're going to change it. We're going to do things differently. And that season, they went 8-3 to finish the season. And then they finished 8-8. They started out 0-5.
Right.
And then the next season, Super Bowl.
Talk about ownership real quick.
Yeah.
Obviously Josh Harris is the main guy. Josh Harris
Yes.
is the principal owner, but say the same man Johnson's the face of the franchise, right?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yeah.
So I'm I get accused of being a team hopper. It's not really true, but I mean, if there's a team I would root for, it's probably Washington because of Magic Johnson alone. I mean, Magic Johnson, Mark. I'm pretty happy all time.
Well, me too. Look, me too, man. Look, I am a super huge Magic Johnson.
Yes,
Mark.
I'm pretty happy all sports.
Yes,
historically, yeah. But yeah, I mean, you go from Daniel Snyder to Magic Johnson. I mean, that's a big swing. That's a big swing from darkness to light, literally.
Yeah, it is, man. It really is. And oh man, I mean, honestly, we haven't felt this good about team owner since old man Cook, Jack Kent Cook, was the owner.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm exciting times for you guys, and I'm hearing too also that another name change could be on the horizon.
Well, okay. Here's the thing. All right, there's a vocal contingent of fans locally that didn't want them to get rid of the name Redskins, and they've been kind of pissy about it ever since. And then they didn't like Commanders, or they don't like Commanders. And so it's one of those things where people say something loud enough, then the media starts to cover it. I don't think they're going to do it. I mean, they might, but they've taken the past couple of years to get the name Commanders established. And
I'll be honest with you, I was getting used to football team. I was okay with that at some point. Well, because football team's not bad.
And honestly, we have a kind of a two Americas situation here with the fan base. So there's a contingent of fans in like Northern Virginia and then there's a contingent of fans in like Washington D.C. proper, and then in some of the surrounding counties in Maryland, and they're different. They're really different attitudes amongst the different sections. The Northern Virginia folks have an entirely different attitude than everyone else, and the Northern Virginia folks are the ones more likely not like to want the name changed again.
Right.
Those of us in Maryland and in DC, we're fine with Commanders. In fact, some like local guys here already did a song. You've probably seen it on Twitter where the little video where the guys saying, let's ham up, Commanders. Well, those are just some local dudes who made a song, and it kind of caught on around here. So
it may stick. It may still stick at the end. We'll see. I'm sure to let the fans weigh on that a little bit. I can see that.
Because to me, look, it's done. Commanders is the name. Let's go. And look, for a while, you know what? I was ignorant for a long time about the connotations of the name Redskins. And so I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I was Mr. Enlightened about all of that all this time. I was not.
Of course. Yeah.
But once I got it, then it was like, look, yes, please change the damn name. Okay.
Yeah.
And look, if we're talking about 1983 or something, then yeah, I might slip and call them Redskins. Okay. And I don't, to me, that's not a big deal if you're talking about that era from then, but at the same time, it's 2023. The name has been changed. You should not still be holding on to Redskins in 2023. If you were a fan back in the early Gibbs era, like I was, you got your memories. Okay. You can watch every good thing about that era. You can watch on video. You can watch it on YouTube or
it's on
whatever.
YouTube. That's right.
And, and so you don't have to run around yelling Redskins. Okay. You don't. So move on. Okay.
Yeah. So again, congrats to you. Congrats
Thank
to
you.
Washington. It's over. The dark days are over. Hopefully, you guys. Well, look, I ain't gonna say hopefully they gotta start winning because we're rivals still. I'm a Giant fan. We're rivals still. I don't want to get ahead of myself on that,
Right.
But at least you can get through this dark cloud. Finally, it's over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but one of the reasons why we decided to do this segment too, especially, is that Paul Pierce had said some things recently. Paul Pierce says a lot of things, for the record.
Yeah.
In fact, Paul Pierce has bad takes for centuries. He weighed in recently on, I believe it was on the It Is What It Is podcast, a new podcast with Cameron and Mace.
Oh, they're if you ever listen to it, they are hilarious.
Oh God, yeah, funny as hell. I love where media's going these days, man. I love it. But he basically was saying, he says before in the past, he's saying it now that he's doubled down that he's better than Dwyane Wade. Basically, the one quote that stood out to me is this quote: "Put Shaq on my team, put LeBron and Bosh with me. I'm not going to win one. Is he a better scorer? Okay, he averaged more points than my career. I can shoot the three. Now, you look at the entire Paul Pierce, what he was saying and the whole thing. While I disagree with pretty much everything he said there, for the first time, he used actual logic in what he was saying. I still put Dwyane Wade ahead of him in all-time greats, but he has to use logic for once. And I can't say I actually will knock Paul Pierce on this take for once.
Okay. So if he had LeBron and Chris Bosh, he absolutely would have won some rings. Okay. Because they won a championship with Garnett and Ray Allen when they were both. Those guys were both
in their
like
prime.
maybe. Well, they were like maybe like a year out. They were just at the very tail end of their prime.
Right.
Okay. If he had LeBron James and Chris Bosh when they were in the very heart of their prime, yeah, he would have won a championship or two. Yes, they would have. Okay. Look, Paul Pierce. Okay, I looked him up on Basketball Reference here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and listen, when you talk about NBA players' careers, a lot of these guys, especially like the Hall of Famers, they'll play like 15 years, and then so their career average may not look so great because those last 4 or 5 years they're kind of just hopping from team to team or whatever.
Yeah. In his
And they're
case,
not,
he did that in his case. Brooklyn
yeah,
to
and
Washington, yeah, to
yeah,
Clippers.
and they're not playing as many minutes. They're not scoring as many points because they're like, damn near 40 years old, and so their career average gets dragged down by that a lot of times. So what you need to do is you need to go back just and look at like, okay, what were their best years? What did their best years look like? And how long of a period were they at their best? Right? Because some guys are at their best only for like 2 or 3 seasons. Some guys are at their best for like 7 or 8 seasons, or maybe
Right.
10 seasons even. Right? So to me, that's what you do. Because way back actually at one time, it's been a while now, but I actually wrote a basketball column for 411 Mania about 15 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it ran up until about maybe like 2011, 2012. And so I used to read, and look, I'm Mr. Numbers nerd, so
Of course.
I used to read box scores every day. I would read all the NBA box scores every day and just read through all the different numbers and see who did what. And like I said, and I was always trying to figure out okay, well, what statistics correlate the most with actually winning the game. And then I would look at like how many points are these people scoring and all that. So I used to keep up with this stuff all the time.
Of course, yeah.
So now Paul Pierce, all right. So in his best year was, all right, he averaged over 25 points a game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different times, 5 different seasons. He averaged 25 points or more a game. I'm bringing that up because people talk about Paul Pierce now like he was a bum. And that is the furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah, anybody knows basketball will tell you he's not a bum. Look, I'm not a Paul Pierce fan at all. Even them was the Celtics, so let's start there. But I also look, I'm also not a Michael Jordan guy, but Jordan's greatest of all time. So I mean, so it is what it is. I can use my logic of I don't like the guy, whatever, but as a player, the dude is first ballot Hall of Famer. I always give him his props. But my problem with Paul Pierce is that he has said so much ridiculous shit, especially since retiring, that when he says something with logic, it's a shock. And then I almost feel like he says it just because for shock value. Like I don't know if I can believe him or not, because he's already put it out there that he says like a lot of really dumb shit. I'm sorry, he has said a lot of dumb shit through the years.
Yeah, but you know what though? Okay, Isaiah Thomas doesn't say dumb things, but Isaiah Thomas believes in his heart that he was right about every dispute he had with somebody. Okay, if you listen to him talk, he believes in his heart that he was right.
I'll say this way: he should have been on the dream team though. I don't
give absolutely. Oh yes,
should have been in the fucking dream team without fucking question.
Oh, absolutely, yes. And that was some whole shit that they did to him, right?
Yeah, of course. And it's kind of his fault too, well, to some degree, but at the same time, that guy is, to me, and as we go away from that era now, he becomes more and more underrated.
Yeah, and that's because exactly he does. And right. but my point with Isaiah says a lot of things where you're just like, okay, come on, man.
Yeah, he's a little
But in his case, like I say, it's just he believes in his heart everything that was up for dispute. He believes he was right. Okay,
yeah,
and that's the difference, right? But he's not just saying like wild dumb stuff, but it's just there are things where like, okay, man, but. So Paul Pierce doesn't bother me really, and when he says something off the wall, he doesn't really bother me.
He's a bit of a shock jock, though, in my opinion. A bit of a shock.
But I mean, that's kind of the media culture now, though.
Yeah,
too.
But he goes over the top with that shit, though. He goes over the top, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, so does Draymond, right? I mean, it's just like if you want to get, I mean, it's just kind of what it is. But all right, so in 2002, Paul Pierce led the Boston Celtics to the Eastern Conference Finals.
That's correct.
They lost in 6 games to the Nets. Okay. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because that team was not, the rest of the players on that team were not very good. Okay. And So for him to do that, to lead them to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they lost in 6 games, they didn't get swept or anything. And along with those seasons where he averaged over 25 points a game at 5 different times. And then there are a bunch of other times where he averaged 20 in the 20s. He was finals MVP with Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. So if you're going to, for him to say that if he had Chris Bosh and LeBron James, he'd have won some championships.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad take at all. I don't think
he absolutely would have.
Yeah.
If he had Shaquille O'Neal, he would have. If Shaq was on his team in 2006.
Although our boy Duke did say, well, he did have Shaq 1 year, but come on, Duke.
Come on,
that don't count, bro.
No,
Shaq retired. He played 36 games a year, and he retired like literally during the little playoffs. Like,
yeah, and I mean that's when, look, Shaq in the last 4 or 5 years, Shaq was he was check cashing, as I call it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, so no, I mean, come on, man.
Duke goes, doesn't matter. He's still there. Doesn't matter. Like, come on, Duke. Come on.
No, stop it. I mean, no, yeah. That guy, yeah, you can't. I mean, so for me, yes, if he basically, look, if he had those level of teammates, yes.
Yeah, I agree.
He would have won some more championships. I mean, why not? I mean, and look, if he had Shaq on his team in 2006, then yeah, they would have. I mean, because
he's got to the finals. But we also gotta say, Dwyane. Look, I think you would. I think we're gonna agree that all time Dwyane or Paul is Dwyane, right?
Yes, because Dwyane actually his numbers actually are better, other than the 3-point shooting.
He's a better player too. Also, on top of that.
Yeah. Overall. So and no, the thing is though. So if I mean, but. Like if,
but I don't have. The thing with me is I don't have to knock Pierce to prop Dwyane.
Right,
and I won't do that.
And if you're looking at, like, if we're going to call them shooting guards, all right, if Dwyane is top 5 or top 10, Paul Pierce is top 15.
Top 15 small forward.
Oh, if it's small forward. Oh,
yeah,
I guess. Yeah, so it's like there aren't that many. There are not. That many.
You can argue top 10. Argue. I'm not saying I have to go through a list again and see.
Yeah, that's the problem.
But you can argue it. You can argue it.
I gotta.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to. Yeah, I got to see a list of names.
One day we'll do that. One day.
Yeah, and then go through and say, okay, that guy was better. That guy wasn't. But
yeah,
Paul. Yeah, as far as small forwards, if you want to say Paul Pierce is top 10 small forward,
number 10, fine.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and he might be number 10, but that's still top 10.
And you can argue it. I have to go to the list and see that, but yeah, I can. It wouldn't be foolish.
Yeah, and so and look, in the way he gets kind of overlooked now, he has every look. If you don't look, some people don't get the benefit of being promoted by everybody else.
Yeah,
and you got to promote yourself. Okay,
yeah.
So I mean, if you were that good and you know you were that good, then
do you think?
Yeah, and then everybody, like, if you're the one that has to say it, then go ahead and say it.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, 2 more things to get you out of here. 2 more things. We love talking politics in this podcast.
Yes.
Ron DeSantis. I know we spoke about this a couple weeks ago, but there's now new polling now that's coming out in recent days, and not only is he not gaining on Trump, not only is he starting to fall in the polls, now we have polling that has him deadlock for second and possibly falling behind a few certain candidates now. There's 2 polls I saw recently that has now Vivek Ramaswamy dead even with Ron DeSantis in this GOP poll.
Okay, now I would race because I think that guy's totally an internet from personality or whatever. I mean,
this is one poll I can say is an anomaly, but multiple polls you gotta start giving it some credence a little bit. And not only that, on top of it, DeSantis falling apart. Chris Christie's put some numbers on the board the last couple of weeks. Nikki Haley, granted, to South Carolina is her home, so she will gain on that. So what we're seeing here is that you think people will coalesce around one guy to challenge Trump. That ain't happening. And it's certainly happening for DeSantis.
Well, no. Well, the thing about it is, the candidate has to make that happen at a certain point, because right now, okay, so there's Trump, then there's everybody else. And so somebody out of the everybody else has to convince people to vote for them. You have to convince enough people to vote for you, or else those other candidates are just going to split 40% of the vote or whatever, and then Trump will get 60 or whatever. And then also, like, you have to convince some people who would have voted for Trump to vote for you. That's just kind of what it is. And look, DeSantis is looking more and more just like a political media creation, which I think I've said this before. Look, the political media, they very badly want competitive primaries, so they will talk up other candidates. They will prop up other candidates. They will give, outside. They'll give other candidates way more attention than they warrant, because they want a competitive primary next year, because that's TV ratings, it's content, etc.
Right.
And so you got to, when you see these other names out there, that's just, and having just now watched several cycles since I started voting, I can say I can pick up on it now when that's happening.
Yeah.
And now the biggest thing with DeSantis, like the polling thing is a tell, though, because he got no polling bump from when he actually officially announced and started campaigning.
Normally get no bump. You get that.
Yeah. Normally, I mean, you just get a bump out of curiosity because you're new and people are looking at you and like, okay, then let me look at this guy.
He's not Trump. Yeah.
And you usually get some type of polling bump just from that.
Right.
Even before people, even if you're no good at all, you usually get some type of bump from just announcing and starting your campaign. He got nothing from that, and he's been sinking ever since. And so it tells me what that tells me is that there's nothing there. There was nothing there to start with. That it's all kind of a mirage.
Well, I think he'll play his hand too. Also, like I explained to you last time when we did the podcast, that I think he thought that because he won big numbers in Florida, that he thought that was based on this policy. No, it was based on the fact because he only brought in Democrats and independents on this coalition because of the COVID response. That's all it was.
Yeah, and then
then he wants to go stick to the right of Trump, which is stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and well, unfortunately, so look, I don't think there's a way to beat Trump anyway, because the loudest part of the party are the MAGA folks, and so they want MAGA, and so you can run to the left of Trump all you want. The MAGA folks don't want that anyway. They still don't want that. They don't want that. They don't want watered down MAGA. They want full MAGA. So that's just what it is.
Right.
Now, but until that changes, then this is what it is. And DeSantis, look, he's not a good candidate either. It might, if
that's starting to show now. That's starting to show now. He's awkward. No personality.
None. And he's
a jerk. Yeah. Say what about Donald Trump. Look, Donald Trump, not my guy. But Donald Trump is entertaining as hell. Donald Trump is interesting.
Yes.
It's great TV.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that in itself gives an inherent advantage no matter what.
Right, exactly. And so if you're so I just think, honestly, I think now it's time to really just say that there's really nothing there to start with. And usually look, running for president is hard. Okay. Convincing people that you should be the president of the United States is hard. And you got to do something to get some energy going in people. He does not have that. And then if you're running against somebody who was essentially, the incumbent nominee, you got to bring some type of energy to overturn that. Like when Obama ran in 2008, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was Hillary's nomination. If Obama had not run, Hillary would have stomped all over the rest of the field, and she'd have been president. And he had to bring a different. he couldn't just be a different person than Hillary Clinton. He had to bring real fire and real energy because he had to convince people. Because the vast majority of the Democratic voters in 2008 were perfectly fine with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
So he had to go out there and give you a reason to not vote, to vote for him instead of
And
her.
he did.
And he did that. So with Trump, you have to give those people, you have to give the MAGA people you have to convince them that no, you should vote for me instead of your favorite guy. Okay. Because to the MAGA people, Trump is their favorite guy. And you have to convince those people said, no, instead of voting for your favorite guy, you need to vote for me instead of him. Because like you're not running in a vacuum, you're running against somebody. And you have to convince people. And the question is, if I'm already inclined to vote for Trump, why should I vote for you instead? Why should I vote for if I'm good with him? Why should I vote for you?
There you go.
And
there you go.
And that's what and that's what it is, and that's what you got to do. And he has shown no capacity to convince anybody of that. Because even the people who are supporting him now, Trump gets the nomination, they're all going to vote for Trump, no problem. So you got to convince, like why should I pick you instead, right? And it's no different, with any type of product. Like, okay, why is McDonald's still number one fast food place? Because most people are at worst perfectly fine with McDonald's if they want fast food. They don't feel any need to go to somewhere else. Okay,
Right,
they
exactly.
don't. You can put a Burger King right next to the McDonald's, but I'm good with McDonald's, so McDonald's has to do something really. Burger King has to convince me to go to Burger King over McDonald's. Pepsi has to convince me to drink Pepsi instead of Coke. AEW has to convince me to watch them instead of WWE.
Yeah.
Instead of, not along with, but instead. And you're voting for president, you're picking
Either
one
or.
person.
Yeah.
You're voting for one. You're not voting for the two people to be together. You're voting for one person. So if there's somebody who the voters are inclined to vote for, whether it's because they really like the person or whether just because they're perfectly fine with them, then you have to convince them that no, you need to vote for me instead. And you have to do something. You got to bring some type of energy. You got to articulate some better ideas for policy. You got to do something. And he's not doing anything. And honestly, and none of them are doing anything.
No. To Chris Christie's credit, he's the only one he's pushing back on Trump head on.
And honestly, but I think at this point it's too late in the game as far as his career for it to matter.
Yeah.
If this was 2016, maybe, but at this point, it's just. Well, people have seen him lose, and for all intents and purposes, right now he's no, it's just not going to happen. So, and the other thing is that, and you can blame the party for this too, because if they could, because actually I'm putting together a little thing for my own show here, and I'm just going to give a little preview of it here. Basically, okay, so party nominations, the party nomination process, it's not written in the Constitution anywhere. Political parties can nominate their person however they want. There are no rules. There are no laws. So you know what? They could you could have all the primaries, all the caucuses. You could count up all the delegates, and the party could just say, you know what? We don't care. We're picking that guy over there instead. Right? They can do that if they want to.
Yeah.
Because it's a party. It makes its own rules. And you just have to have the only thing you need. Look, you got to be 35 years old. You got to live here 14 years. You got to be born in the United States, and you got to have enough. And you got to get enough signatures in each. Now it's a state law that you got to get so many signatures to get on the ballot in each state. But that's just a state law. That's not the Constitution, right? Yeah. So basically, the parties can nominate whoever the heck they want. And
you ain't lying about that. That's for sure.
And so, regardless of how the process goes, so the Republican Party, if they really wanted to not have Donald Trump, they could come up with whatever kind of rule they wanted. They could vote on a rule that says that, okay, well, if you're under indictment, you can't be nominated, you can't be the nominee.
They chose not to.
They could vote on a rule that says if your last name is Trump, you can't be the nominee.
They chose not to because they're scared.
Yeah, and also because he's there, like right now. I mean, the policies that the Republican Party are known for now are not popular, and you're not going to win on those policies.
But that's, right. I'm glad you said that too, because that's what I've been saying. People assume that all these Trump folks are these right wing evangelicals. Yes, some of them, but a lot of these folks also too are people who are also disenchanted with the Democratic Party. Also too, some of these guys, some people are former Obama voters, former Democrats who do have certain liberal or left leaning views on certain things, but feel, if not homeless, but disenchanted with the Democratic Party. So
I would just look. I'm sorry, in this day and age, I got to tell those people that they're idiots.
Well, there was an excuse in 2016 to do that. I get that. 2016, 2020 beyond, you're on your own. You know
for me, when the option was a guy with a 30-year record of being a con man, literally.
Well, not only that, but you talk about policy. Which party is close to you on policy is the question. We have a policy conversation. I mean,
because look. I mean, the vast majority of the country does not want abortion to be banned.
Exactly.
They don't want, honestly, and as far as opposition to gay rights and things like that, if you leave people to their own devices, the majority of the people don't give a damn. They will leave. Hostility towards LGBT folks has to be ginned up. It has to be engineered. It has to be driven. Right? People don't. I mean, because look what happens once you get away from those influences, and even if you had some homophobic beliefs or whatever. I mean, when you get away from those influences, that shit tends to fade really fast. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you don't really care. I mean, or you don't, if you're not thinking about it, if you're not having this stuff put in your ear all the time, and you just, that stuff just doesn't have the same kind of fervor, and then it eventually could just kind of fade away. And so there isn't this real heartfelt opposition to that stuff. It can be engineered, it can be driven by people who talk about it all the time, but it has to constantly be stoked and festered and driven.
Right.
So and the majority of the country does not favor, lower taxes for rich people, which has been a Republican staple for many decades. Because most of us are not millionaires, so we're not impressed by, the idea that we should cut millionaires' taxes to 20% or 10% or whatever. Nobody's really enthusiastic about that.
No, of course.
And then so it's just their policies are not particularly popular. Cutting Social Security, cutting Medicare. I mean, and again, these are things that Republicans have said that they want to do. I'm not making this shit up here. Okay. So when you look at the things, when you get down to the nitty gritty, the things that they've said they want to do, that stuff's not popular. So their only way to win is for somebody like Trump, who can stoke up a certain energy in some people. And then, even then, you still have to, basically like an inside straight. You have to get these razor thin margins in several states and win the electoral college, because they're not going to win the popular vote.
Yeah.
And the only person they have who can do that is Trump.
Yeah.
Because the rest of those people, quite frankly, are boring. And
it's not entertainment.
There's no energy to them at all.
Nope.
And so, and look, Joe Biden is a very underrated politician. And what his biggest strength is that he's normal. He's normal. he's like, he's the guy that lives down the street from you, who's older, and he's got grandkids, and he waves to you from the out when you meet the mailbox.
Well, a lot of the argument too, also people against him, has nothing to do with policy. Has to do with more so with how old he is and whatnot, and the gaps. And I get all that, but
the thing about that is,
where's he wrong? Where's he wrong? Where's the policy disagreement with him?
But there's also the thing that once you actually sit down and listen to him talk at length, that's not a concern anymore, because when you listen to him talk at length and listen to just how knowledgeable he is about stuff, then that whole thing about him being old is just, it doesn't hold up anymore.
Right.
And look, like with Obama, when they tried to paint him as like being, some type of Farrakhan disciple or something, right? And then
the good old days. Remember those?
Yeah, right. And then, I mean, you try to paint him like that, and but people will listen to him talk, and they're like, "Well, that's stupid."
Mm-hmm.
He don't sound, it's just people heard him talk, and you just couldn't stick that label on him because people heard him, they listened to him, and it's just it doesn't fit.
No.
So
right.
You can make. I mean, they tried to make Joe out to be senile Joe or whatever, but then when you actually listen to Joe talk, he's not. And he's not that at all. And it's so, and none of those people in that field, can have anything to overcome, basically normal Joe, right? Who we lots of people have a neighbor who Joe Biden reminds them of, or and it's just, and none of these other folks have really the thing to overcome that. And look, it's like George W. Bush. He was, he's very, just that whole kind of demeanor he has. It was hard to paint him as some type of radical Republican guy, right?
No.
And some people tried, and they really couldn't, because people listened to him talk and all of that, and it didn't fit. It didn't fit the caricature.
He was a compassionate conservative.
Yeah, it didn't fit the caricature, and so, and so that's the thing with Joe. It's just, he doesn't fit when you actually sit down and listen to him. He doesn't fit the caricature, so it's kind of hard. You can try, but in the long run, it doesn't really stick. And and it's,
I just love how people on the right, like, the 1 minute he's an evil genius, and the next minute he's an old gaffing machine. Like, you can't have both ways.
Well, that's what, and that's the thing, right? That's what, because they did the same thing with Obama. Obama is weak, spineless, but he's also the secret evil emperor, right? And it's like, you're trying to, well, which one is it? Like I said, pick a struggle, like they say, right?
Yeah.
Which one is it? Is he the hapless, spineless, incompetent, or is he the evil, dastardly, emperor of all things? Which one? Like, you can't say he's both at the same time.
Exactly.
And yes, they are doing that. I mean, they do try that with Joe, and it's the same thing. They try. He can't be the senile old grandpa and the evil master of the world or whatever. He can't be both.
Right, for real.
And it's just, so I think DeSantis, he's going to stay in the race because,
well, he's pulling second behind anybody else. I mean,
right. And now, and look, again, to anyone listening, the political media is going to try very hard they're going to do everything they can to keep him alive. But my prediction is that once people actually start voting in the primaries, it's going to be over real fast.
Yeah, I am curious though. Because we have the first set of debates coming, in next month, so we'll start seeing the first real set of like real exposure to, could that change the tide? I doubt it will, but you have the debates. You still have, the caucus, in early next year. So we got a lot of things coming up that can maybe change some things here, but I don't expect anything to change, barring Trump dying, or maybe the GOP decides to, grow some balls. I just say, you know what, we can have an indicted and a guy in jail, a guy in prison, be president of the United States, or running for president of the United States. So that can't happen. So
yeah, I just don't expect them to, because if they did
at this point, no.
They'd have stopped him in 2016 if they did.
All this has happened in the last 7 years now. You think it'll change now? Might as well stick with it.
Yeah.
You chose narcotic. It's the narcotic. Deal with it. That's it. One last thing. One last thing that's out here. SummerSlam is 9 days away, 8
Yeah.
to 10 days from today, from this recording. The build, you enjoy it?
Oh, some parts, yes. And I think overall, yes. And I guess the thing I'm looking at, really, the thing I'm most curious about is, are they going to add? They have 8 matches right now.
Yeah.
Are they going to add any more? Because for the premium live events, they haven't had. I think the most they've had is 8 since, I think it was since Crown Jewel in 2021.
Yeah, they've been very conservative now with the matches, which I love.
Yeah, and so they had Crown Jewel 2021. They had 10 matches, and ever since they haven't had more than 8 on any show.
It's a good number.
Yeah, and honestly, that's one of the reasons that is a big reason why the premium live events have been so better received, is because they don't have as many matches, and they don't have, because when you have 10, 12 matches, some of those matches are filler, and you have filler matches that nobody cares about, and it drags down the overall show.
Yeah.
It makes the show harder to sit through. And so keeping it to 7 or 8 has made all these shows better. So the thing is, right now they're at 8 now, and so there's still some people who have not had a match announced of any type. So are they going to add any more matches, or are they going to keep it like it is? Because SummerSlam is a 1-day event. I personally I think they should keep it where it is. I think right now they're at 8 matches. Because again, once you get past 8, you're making it to the point of now it's getting harder, and it becomes more and more of a slog.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, that's the big, that's, of course, that's the big drawback on Monday nights, because it's 3 hours. And even, I mean, you can book 3 good hours, it's still 3 hours, right? And if so, you start booking 9, 10, 11 matches, then it's just, it drags things, because it's just, it drags things, it makes things drag. It takes away from even the better matches, because now you have less attention, you're more tired from watching all these other stuff. So to me, my biggest point of curiosity right now is whether or not they're going to add any more matches, because they're already at 8. I would recommend they don't. And one thing we're going to talk about this week, because the guy who runs the Chair Shot Radio Network, Greg DeMarco, he has kind of posed us in our little chat here. The possibility, like, do we think they're going to start going 2 nights for some of these other events?
I hope not.
Same here. And because SummerSlam seems to be, and he's saying that now because they're at 8 matches for SummerSlam, and there's still some pretty high profile people who have no match, and they might get added to it, that we could be heading in the direction of SummerSlam becoming a 2-night thing.
I hope not. I really hope not. Just because
WrestleMania
should be special.
Right. Exactly. And then, because look, I mean, I can lock in, say, okay, WrestleMania is 2 nights. Okay, I can lock in for 2 nights for WrestleMania. But locking in for doing that again for SummerSlam,
and not just for SummerSlam, but 4 months later,
and then for the Royal Rumble, and then the Royal Rumble is already a struggle for them to book a whole card for the Royal Rumble now. Like, they had 5 matches last year or this year at the Royal Rumble on the whole show, 5 matches. I think the year before they had 5 or 6. Because you got 30 men and 30 women all tied up in the Rumble matches.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just doesn't, there aren't a lot of people left to do anything else with. And so making the Royal Rumble a 2-night thing would just, to me, it would, that just, and a 2-night SummerSlam is something I would not want to do.
Yeah, I think that's you asking too much there. I mean, I know, I'm sure that's been brought up, because of course you want to find a way to revenue and all that. And I'm sure if they do, it'll be successful, because it's WWE. People, wrestling fans, will find a way to make it happen. It's just too much. This is too much for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that's honestly because it's, I mean, like, too much. There's already too much wrestling content as it is to keep up with all of it. And
Yeah.
we all make choices about, okay, I'm going to watch this show. I'm not going to watch that show. And because like for me, I watch SmackDown every Friday. I've been watching Collision.
Saturdays.
Yeah. Because I really like Collision a lot.
I gotta say, man, your little turnaround on AEW last year has been kind of encouraging.
Well, look, there's certain people that I can't stand. Okay, I can't stand the Young Bucks.
Of course,
I'm
yeah.
not a big fan of Kenny Omega, and so I'm not a fan of those guys in that company who kind of follow in that style.
Of course,
I'm not a fan of those guys doing that type of stuff. But what they're doing on Collision is a complete departure from that.
mm-hmm.
And what they're doing on Collision is right up my alley as far as the type of matches they're having, the type of work they're doing, and all of that. So I've been watching that every Saturday, and I really like Collision. I watch SmackDown every Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Raw I have on, but then I flip between that and doing stuff on my PS5, and I kind of follow along on the timeline. Other than that, but then so NXT I kind of follow on the timeline, and and while I'm doing other things, it's just there's not enough. It's so much, and you can't possibly watch all of this stuff and watch anything else on TV, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you have to make choices, and so to continue to keep expanding this stuff and keep expanding and keep expanding, eventually you'll hit a saturation point, and people will start more and more people will start making decisions,
Yeah.
to not take in all of this stuff, and so I would warn them to be cautious about that, because there's a point, because I know some people, I've talked to people over the years who checked out altogether because they just said it was just too much to keep up with. And so you don't want to do that. You don't want to get to that point. You got to be careful about that type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Rob. Thank you so much for the pod as always.
Yeah, man.
Frequent flyer.
Yes, sir.
Anything want to plug? Any writings coming up? What you got? Any blogs? What?
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, I've recently written some stuff. I went to a house show a few weeks ago. Wrote about that. I'm writing some things. I do try to write some movie reviews every now and then,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm got a couple of those I'm working on. I'm writing.
Did you see Barbie yet?
No, it's not my deal, man. So no, I mean it's cool to see the people enthusiastic about it and all that, but it's just it's not my deal.
Oppenheimer.
I might get around to that, but yeah. I saw Indiana Jones. I saw Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible is great.
Okay.
Indiana Jones was okay for me. I mean, to me, it's just that they had the perfect ending at the end of Last Crusade when they rode off into the sunset together.
Mm-hmm.
That was a perfect ending, and they they could have left it there because everything since then it's just not been that. That's what I've seen recently. Yeah, but if I had to recommend anything, I would recommend Mission Impossible over everything else.
Okay. You have that, of course, Mount Emerson podcast. You also have the Robert Jeans podcast as well, too, that you do every other week, I guess now, or every week.
Yeah. Yep. So I just released one a couple days ago where I talked about the football Washington Commanders and a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, happy day.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Look, hey, it's nice to have a professionally run organization again.
We shall see how things play out going forward.
Yes.
Good job, Rob, as always. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Awesome. All right, thank you for Robert Bonnette coming on the show, as always. He's now become our frequent flyer of the Earnestly podcast. But it's been a great time with him on the show, of course. So, back to referencing earlier in the show about my top 5 storylines entering or should I say his top 5 most interesting storylines for me personally entering the season. I did ask you guys and folks on social media about what storyline or storylines, plural, interested you entering the season. So I asked a bunch of questions. Asked you guys on there, and got some responses here. First up, our good friend Big Jim on the show. He says Aaron Rodgers and the Jets is one. He also interested in the potential run back holdouts, of course. And a personal one for him, he says, can Dak and the Cowboys take the next step? Yeah, of course, that's always a fascinating story, the Cowboys and what they're going to do. I mean, they're a good team. They're a solid team. They just can't get over the hump. I mean, I've been in the title game in 27 years. Who would have thought that? Who would have thought that in 1996 would be the last time you will see this team play in the Final Four of the NFL? That's insane when you think about that. All right, let's continue here. Nick Ficarelli says the Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs situations, although Saquon Barkley is pretty much done for the time being. The Washington Commanders under new ownership, and whether or not the Dolphins can take the next step. I agree with that. The Dolphins for it. The Dolphins will definitely take the next step. It's all about Tua, my friend. All about Tua. Thank you, Nick. Jim Fields says, have the Bears made the right moves to improve on last year's disaster? Also, he says, who will win the NFC North? And can Jacksonville really contend in a load AFC? I like those as well, too. I think the Jaguars are, honestly, one of the most intriguing teams of the league entering the season. Richard Roach says, I kind of like the plus 180 for the Cowboys not to make the playoffs. They're probably the third best team in the division, and I was listening to a podcast that said the Saints and Falcons may win at least 10 games, mainly due to bad schedules. The Cowboys also face the AFC West, I believe. It is hard to believe the Saints' top three opponents for 2023 are Jacksonville, Detroit, and Minnesota. The Saints win out on a weaker schedule than the Falcons because they get New England, and Atlanta has to play the Jets. They get the AFC East, but that is still very tough. Still think Roberts Road, Dallas will get in the playoffs as a wild card. Still think Dallas is a top three team in that conference. I mean, obviously it's a low bar because it's a very top heavy conference. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely space for teams in the NFC South, teams in the NFC North to make a splash if they choose to. So I can see the argument. Ultimately, if you're asking me, Dallas are they in the playoffs? I think they're a playoff team. On their wild card team, most likely a wild card team, not a division winner. I think Philadelphia has the NFC East lock, stock, barrel, personally. All right. Warren Brooks says, will Tampa win 5 or more games with Baker at quarterback? Baker Mayfield, of course. Is the feature back now obsolete? And lastly, will the Browns fans stop drinking the Kool-Aid and realize they are still the clowns, a dumpster fire? Tampa winning 5 more games. That's a good question. Again, there's space to make a splash in that division in NFC South. So we'll see how that plays out, of course. Obviously, look, the run backs will never be obsolete because I think there's always a place for that. I think the economics is going to dictate how much a priority it's going to be moving forward. But these things are always cyclical also, too. I think once it gets a new CBA in a few, whatever, was it 2028, the next CBA? I'm sure this will be a situation where the NFLPA will have to really make some noise about making sure running backs are compensated fairly. But we're a long way away from that, unfortunately, for running backs. NFLPA is one of the worst PAs and associations in sports. In my opinion, they do a good job. In fact, they have two franchise tags rather that you can slap on. Is just ludicrous to me personally. That's in my opinion. And finally, Thomas Randall has one thing. He says, "Will the Dolphins make the first round in the playoffs?" Yes, I think. Well, again, it's another Tua question. Is Tua healthy? Yes, absolutely. The Dolphins make the first round of the playoffs. I mean, past first round of playoffs. Their ceiling, obviously, with Tua is probably Final Four in the AFC, Final Four in the league. Obviously, if Tua's not healthy, then they're not a playoff team. It's that simple. As decent as Mike White is, I just don't. I think in that conference, you need Tua to be healthy for at least 14 plus games this year to make this work. That's just my opinion. And now you have the Jets, Aaron Rodgers in that division now. So good luck with that. But thank you guys again for all your responses here on the podcast. We appreciate it, and hopefully continue to do this every single week. If you do this every, I think Thursdays will be probably a day to start doing this more often. Thursdays, we'll put up questions probably on Sundays, and then we'll probably let the entire week go by and let people answer questions. And Thursdays we'll make that the closeout segment of Thursday's show. All right. Hope this will get out of here. As my throat's a little raw. I've been a lot under the weather since the last couple of weeks because I've been going to a lot of concerts lately. Speaking of concerts, want to quickly review a couple of shows I went to in the last week. I told you guys I was attending some concerts. First of all, I attended Mudvayne. Mudvayne's a metal band I've been into for many years that went on hiatus for about 13, 14 years. Came back last year. This is their first full tour as a headlining act since returning from hiatus. Saw them in concert last week. Alongside who else on that show? You had Cold Chamber, you had Gore, Non-Point, the local guys, Non-Point, of course, and some other band I missed when I got to the amphitheater. Great show. Mudvayne put on a very good show. Crowd not so great though. I mean, obviously it was so where we saw the show, there's a lawn, and the lawn was barely had people in the lawn as it is, as mostly seats filled up. But Mudvayne was great. They were fantastic. And I thought, hopefully see them again. It was a bucket list band for me personally. So I was able to finally see them live for the first time ever after 20 plus years of being a fan of these guys. So I enjoyed that show. And then, as I said to you guys, 5 days later, my wife and my kids, we all went to see Fall Out Boy. This past Monday, that was a really good show. Fall Out Boy was really, really good. The band though that stole the show for me and for us, really, to be honest with you, was the band that came out before Fall Out Boy called Bring Me to Horizon. Now they've been around for about 19, 20 years now. I just got to these guys actually recently. My wife sent me a couple of their stuff, their material, I think about 2 months ago, and I was pretty impressed with it. And then seeing them live, I was like, whoa, this is incredible. I actually posted some videos of their set on my social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. If you follow me on there, you check it out there. But they were impressive. I was really impressed with their set. Hope these guys come again. I'd like to see them in the headline spot, especially too. The show was cool. There was a bit of a weather delay, unfortunately, because of due to we had an hour break between the second and third band, so Bring Me to Horizon had to cut their set short by a little bit because of the weather delay. But overall, it was a good show. My kids, the first time we went to a concert, they enjoyed it. They had a great time. And we were saying this because, like, what we're doing next year, probably we're hoping to go to WrestleMania next year in Philadelphia, and the plan is to take the entire family. But the kids have never been in a situation like this where they've been somewhere with a lot of crowds. So before we decided on doing the WrestleMania trip, we wanted to see if our kids can actually deal with big crowds. So this show was stacked to the gills. First off, the entire lawn, like Mudvayne, this show, the entire lawn, which we're seated at, was filled. And they behaved. They lasted. We left a little early because, like I said, the show was delayed, so the show went later than expected, and the kids got a little tired. So we ended up leaving halfway through Fall Out Boy's set. Again, it was solid, but to me, the band that stole the show was Bring Me to Horizon. They were fantastic. Again, you check out the material. On the many platforms, Apple Music, all that. But I'm hoping to see these guys live again. They were fantastic, and I'll tell you what. Going to these shows the last couple of weeks is really giving me the itch now to play again. And I miss going to shows. I miss going to concerts. I have an opportunity to go see Dave Matthews Band this weekend. I have an opportunity to see Disturbed next week as well, too, in concert. I'm going to see Avenged Sevenfold in September as well. So I'm getting the itch again to go to shows, and I'm also getting the itch to maybe play again. We'll see. The last couple of days have been kind of fun. I'm 43 years old. I'm feel kind of old for this stuff, but yet, I'm 25 again. Going to show. Dude, you gotta remember, guys. Prior to getting married and having kids, I used to go to concerts, whether it was local shows or mainstream, live, main acts, big acts. I used to go to shows 2-3 times a week on a regular. And it's not even including the shows I play on as a band. When I was in a band, I play in. So, I mean, this is kind of cool to kind of get back to that groove. Obviously, it's a little of work, though, for me, too. But I'm happy that the amphitheater is not far from my house, either. It's like 25 minutes from my house. It's not a big deal. It's not a big drive. But, yeah. Great couple of days of concerts and having a great time and kind of getting back to nostalgia a little bit with that. So, before we get out of here, one more quick announcement, too, as well. My other podcast that I haven't done in over a year, I've been talking about the Wrestling Retrospective podcast, a podcast I do focus on pro wrestling of yesteryear, focusing on topics, watch-alongs, name it. We are officially back. I just recorded last night the most recent episode. Myself, DJ Minter, Robert Bonnette, who's on the show today for this podcast, we did a watch-along on the very first SummerSlam, the main event of SummerSlam '88, between the Mega Powers and Mega Bucks. That is, of course, Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage versus Andre the Giant and the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase. We did a watch along on that. That was a really fun episode. That episode is going live today. Actually on that feed. Check out, of course, subscribe to the Wrestling Retrospective podcast. I'm hoping to start being more consistent with that show. I was saying hopefully to do the show every week, every 2 weeks, hopefully. I mean, I got topics of the yin yang, but I'm hoping to get more people on the show with me to do shows with me. So, but again, like between that and this show, of course, like right now, between now and September, it's going to be fairly easy to do that show. The challenge is going to be when I get into the fall, when football starts, and work around this schedule of this show, and of course everything else to do around that. So, but that show is now back live again, and hope you guys check it out. Subscribe on any podcast catcher. Again, the Wrestling Retrospective is back, and live and ever. So, looking forward to you guys' feedback on that show. One last thing, sad news today came on the news. Sinead O'Conner, iconic singer, passed away, age 56. Of course, she's known for her massive hit from 1990, Nothing Compares to You, the Prince written hit. You dive into her life, Sinead O'Connor's life, very tragic, very controversial. Remember, she was most known for pretty much getting canceled in 1992 after being on Saturday Night Live and singing a song, which I think was a Bob Marley song, actually, I believe. And she had a picture of the Pope and tore the picture of the Pope on live TV. Of course, she was banned from the show. She was booed at a Bob Dylan tribute concert weeks later at Madison Square Garden. She was pretty much done. Pretty much, she was done with music at that point. Well, done on a mainstream basis with music. Her star fell. Very controversial, like I said. But she had the balls to say the things she wanted to say. And in the end, you think about it, because she was calling out pedophilia in the Catholic Church. Well, what do we know now 30 years later about the Catholic Church? And I'm not saying the Catholic Church is bad. I'm just saying the things we know, the dark stuff of the Catholic Church, what we know now. She was correct. Okay. She also, like I said, tragic life. She just lost her 17-year-old son not even a year and a half ago to suicide. So she lived a grief up until the very end. Very sad, tragic life, but what a voice. What a voice. She had a wonderful and a beautiful voice. What a talent. Sinead O'Conner today passed away yesterday rather, age 56. I hope she's finally at peace. I hope she's reunited with her son. So, anyway, that'll do it for this podcast. Dated July 27th, 2023. Again, on Twitter at EJ Christian 7. Again, thanks to Robert Bonnette once again for coming to the podcast. And we will talk soon. Later.